So I got the honor to do the first presentation after lunch. So please stay awake because I tell you something about standardization. Yes, as Jakob said, I'm Katherina Wuehrl, and I'm with DIN, the German Institute on Standardization. And also I'm the secretary on ISO TC 207 SC7 WG3, which is named GHG Management in the Value or Supply Chain. You don't have to remember. And within that working group, experts developed the ISO 14067, the carbon footprint of products, which now exists in two parts. The first part is on quantification, and the second part is on communication. I will show it to you later on. My presentation will be about, first of all, I tell you something about ISO standards. It's not that boring, I promise you. Then the second, you will get to know the next steps in the time frame, and I heard that this is very interesting to you. I don't know why. Then I show you the scope of part one, the quantification, and the scope on communication, and how the second part changed at the last meeting in Mexico. Yes, first of all about ISO. ISO is the International Organization for Standardization, and it was founded in 1946, which is quite young compared to the German Institute for Standardization, which exists was founded after the First World War. And ISO is a network of around 156 national standardization bodies and around 580 liaison organizations. These liaison organizations, for example, the UNFCCC or the III, International Aluminium Institute, are allowed to give us comments for the standard, but they are not allowed to vote. So right now there are around 15,000 ISO standards existing, but unfortunately not all of them in the environmental sector. Only ISO develops standards for products, services, processes, methods, management systems in all possible sectors. And ISO standards are developed by international expert committees, and the technical input is provided by nominated experts from the national standardization bodies and liaison organizations. And they provide also comments for the develop the draft documents. And of course, these nominated experts are members of the national mirror committees. So if you are interested in that ISO process, then just contact me. Yes, though, on the market there are a lot of different documents dealing with carbon footprint of products. And some of you may have asked, why are you doing another standard, why doing an ISO standard? And it's because ISO has a lot of experience in performing consensus-based multi-stakeholder processes. And compared to many other existing instruments, ISO standards are addressed to all organizations, also to all regions, to all stakeholders involved in the process or who want to be involved in the process. One rule of ISO is that when someone wants to be involved in the process, ISO is not allowed to say no. And due to its generic nature, an ISO standard gives freedom for a special application. The benefits of an ISO standards are quite clear. ISO standards can reduce, for example, trading costs. It can help for governmental deregulation, and it can also simplify contract agreements. And with ISO standards, you can move towards less trade barriers. So at the end, ISO helps more or less to create borderless markets. For example, the European Union, in Europe, with ISO standards, we can achieve a little bit more. And ISO is world connecting. Maybe some of them woke up now. I'm not talking about Facebook, but on ISO. So right here, just to give you an impression, I show you the standardization pyramid. Because you can do standards on every level. You can have only company standards, but also national standards like DIN standards or BSI standards for the United Kingdom. UNI standards from Italy. And then there are, of course, the European standards, and on the top, the international standards. And you can imagine at a company level, you don't have that many stakeholders involved. You don't have so many interested parties. And the process will be very quick in getting a standard document. But the higher you get on that pyramid, the more consensus-oriented you have to work, and the longer the duration of validity should be of some documents, and the more stakeholders you have involved in the process, and the more countries. So for ISO 14067, up to now, we had 7 international meetings where up to 80 participants take place. Around 35 countries are involved, and at the last meeting there were many new countries involved in that process, which makes it a little bit more difficult because they come in and haven't heard the discussions we had before, or they didn't know why we had this consensus written down right now. And we also had experts from Palestine, Iran, and many experts from the middle of Africa. So it was really also quite interesting which problems they have in reading the standard. And then we have also 10 external liaison organizations where also Andrea and Laura are involved in our processes, which we are really, really glad to have them on board. Yes, and our interested parties are, as well as at WW, where we decided to call it at our last ISO meeting because it was too complex always saying that long name. We have all stakeholders, all possible stakeholders involved in our process. So these are the stages of an ISO standard, how it must be, all the stages that it must run through. First of all, you got the proposal stage, where you have a new work item proposal, which could be a finished document by now, which must be discussed, but sometimes you just give a topic to ISO. Then it goes on to the preparatory stage, where you develop a working draft with your experts, and then you go on to the committee stage, where the output is a committee draft, the inquiry stage, where you get the draft international standard, and the draft international standard is the first document everyone can buy, and everyone can make comments on. And then at the end there's the approval stage, where you have a final draft international standards, which the public doesn't see because it's only circulated among the national standardization bodies and liaison organizations. And it's just, you're just able to do editorial comments. And at the end, there's the publication stage, the international standard. So, the next steps in ISO 14067 will be, we have the next meeting in January 2011 in Trieste in Italy. And hopefully, and I don't want to hear laughter now, we can adopt the CD as this to be balloted in January 2011, and the document will then be finished in March 2011, where it can be sent out to the public. After a 5-month period of commenting and balloting, we'll have the last meeting in September 2011. I guess it will be somewhere in China. And hopefully the resolutions of the comments received on this can be discussed, and then we can adopt the document as a formal draft international standard. In November 2011, the EFTAs will be finished by our editing group, and then we have another circulation period of 2 months for vote and editorial comments, as I told you, and then at the beginning of 2012, we can publish the international standard, and we work hard for publishing it in 2012. So again, this table with our dates. So we started the new work item proposal in 2008, and we had unfortunately 4 working drafts because it was so hard to find consensus on so many topics. And right now we had registered the committee draft number 1 in September 2010. So the comments, we will receive comments until December 23rd. And then hopefully we go to the inquiry stage on March 2011, the approval stage in November 2011, and the publication beginning of 2012. So now, let me tell you about the documents by now. First of all, as you know, part 1 was about quantification, and it's built up on ISO 440 and ISO 444. And part 2 is on communication and built up on ISO 14021, 24, and 25. Right now, they exist in these 2 documents. We discussed about merging the 2 documents. There will be some advantages of the merge and also some disadvantages. We have to discuss it when we meet the next time, and also look like how the document will look like. So on part 1, on ISO 440, ISO 44, I can show you the scope of the document, how it is right now, and more information you can get in March 2011, hopefully. Okay, so part 1 specifies principles and requirements for studies to quantify the carbon footprint of a product, and also provides this information of for a partial carbon footprint. And as you know, it's based on the life cycle assessment specified in 14040 and 14044. And it's applicable to CFP studies and partial CF studies with or without the intention to be publicly available. And it provides for the adoption of product category rules, PCF, where they have been developed in accordance with ISO 14025 and are consistent with this standard. And where the outcome of part 1 should be a report, and where this report of the CFP study or the CF or the partial CF study should be communicated, it is referred to part 2, which deals about communication. And this part was remodeled at the last Mexico meeting a lot. The structure changed, and I don't know if I should be looking forward receiving all the comments. I don't know, maybe it's good or maybe it's bad. So before Mexico, we had 2 possibilities on communicating. One possibility was on business-to-business communication, which just depended on contracts. The other possibility was business-to-consumer communication, which should have been done on a PCR basis. And reduction was out of scope, where, for example, the German Mirror Committee was really happy about it. Okay, the scope now looks like that part 2 specifies requirements and provides principles and guidelines of the communication of the CFP based on the report on part 1, as I told you. Then it gives guidance for business-to-business communication, also for business-to-business communication that is publicly available. For example, when an organization posts some information on their website, and business-to-consumer communication under certain conditions. There, it is said that you have to communicate the CFP or partial CF clearly, credibly, and on a consistent, comparable basis, and with supporting information. Then there is a possibility to do communication on performance tracking, so on reductions again, of the CFP or partial CF under certain conditions, and the communication of offsetting is out of scope. Yes, so just to make it clear, it's can be said in that graphic. You have the quantification, the report of the part 1, and the communication you can do in the following 4 to 5 steps. First of all, you have the possibility to do it according to ISO 14024. I got the brackets, which is DIN EN ISO 14024, which means this is also a European standard, and you can get it in your national language if you're a European member. And ISO 14024 is on CF labels, so it's a type 1 communication, and it's a program plus a product group criteria. Then you can do the communication according to ISO 14021, CF claims on type 2 communication, enhanced specification. Then still is in ISO 14025, CF declarations, type 3. It's a program plus PCR. And then you have the other possibilities to communicate with using none of these existing standards, but using a CFP study, inventory report, or performance tracking report. And just for you who are not that familiar with these existing standards, the ISO 14024 is called, or the series on 14020 series is always called Environmental Label and Declarations, and 14024 is on Type 1 Environmental Labeling Principles and Procedures. And this is on a voluntary basis. It's a multiple criteria-based label, and it's a third-party program that awards labels to products with overall environmental preference based on life cycle conditions. And for example, you all know the Blue Angel or the Nordic Swan or the environmental choice label, which are ISO 14024 based labels. And then the other possibility is ISO 14021 and Type 2. It's called self-declared environmental claims, Type 2 environmental labeling. And these are claims made by producers and suppliers on the labels and products and in associated advertising material. For example, this, I don't know, I think you can't see it, it's the CFC free sign, or for example, that sign with the recyclable material. And the last ISO possibility on communication is on Type 3 environmental declarations. And this is quantified environmental data for a product with preset categories of parameters based on ISO 440 and 44. And it is not excluding additional environmental information provided with a Type 3 environmental declaration program. And it provides data on key environmental aspects of products in a format that facilitates comparison of products. But unfortunately, it's limited, it has a limited application to consumer markets due to their complexity. And then there are the two other possibilities. The CF study, for example, is a statement to address that carbon footprint of product refers to single issue parameters, and there must be a date of issue of statement, and there's a direct link to additional publicly available background information, for example, the methodology, results of third-party verification, and the involvement of interested parties. And then the CF performance tracking report is on. It says that a functional unit shall be functional units between products shall be identical, methodologies shall be identical, and if methodologies are changed, the previous inventory shall be adjusted to compare on the same basis. And it must be specified, or the main contributions of the change must be specified then. Okay, that is all I can tell you by now. If you want to know more about the document itself, when it's out on the market, we are planning a DIN workshop on ISO 14067 on March the 30th. If you're interested, just get in contact with me. And now I hope that I can answer a few questions.